Welcome to this quick start video for Unit 2 about algorithms. Here's what we'll cover. We'll introduce the learning goals and featured computer science concepts. We'll call your attention to some key preparation tasks and summarize each lesson's main activity, focusing most on two unplugged activities in Lesson A. If you have the Unit 2 materials open as you listen, you can pause this video at any point to look at them in more detail. During the unit, students will describe the four main components that make up a computer. They'll understand that the microbit takes input, and after processing the input, produces output. They'll learn the variety of different inputs and outputs for the microbit, and apply this knowledge to create a unique microbit program as they build a fidget cube with different inputs and outputs. So let's go over the main computer science concepts. Now, the four main components that make up any computer are inputs like using the keyboard, mouse, or microphone. The central processing unit, or CPU, is how a computer processes and transforms information. Now, there are two types of memory: random access memory, or RAM. It's like short-term memory, and things stored there disappear when you turn off the computer. Now, storage, or the hard drive, is like long-term memory, where information can be stored even when a computer is powered off. Now, outputs are how a computer displays or communicates information, like through the monitor, the printer, or the speakers. And programs tell computers how to process information through algorithms and functions. An algorithm is a set of specific steps that a program follows to accomplish what's intended, and a function is a self-contained set of instructions to the CPU for performing a specific task within a program. Now, these concepts are demonstrated to students with two fun, interactive, unplugged activities. So students learn about pseudocode and coding with events and event handlers in the coding activity and the project. So lesson B and then followed by lesson C. Now, pseudocode is an outline or a rough draft of your program's algorithm with a mix of plain language and code to help you organize and plan out what you want a program to do. Now, an event is an input or action by the user, and the event handler is the part of the code that responds to the event. So, for example, a mouse click event can trigger the computer to open an app on screen, or the event of pushing button A on the microbit can trigger it to show a smiley face. Now, I'll call your attention to some key points about your preparation. As you complete the unit-level tasks, you can check your programming against the solution link provided with the coding activities. To prepare for Lesson A, there are some decisions you're going to want to make for each of the unplugged activities. So for the first one, what's your function? Decide on the types of functions using the provided examples and whether you're going to prepare function cards or not. In the second activity, which is called Crazy Conditionals, you're going to determine if you want to revise the activity or the provided conditional statements, and then you're going to print them out and cut them into strips so that you have one conditional statement on each strip. And again, the Lesson B prep is in the Educator guide, and then the Lesson C prep is later in the guide too, and I think both of them are pretty self-explanatory. Now, in Lesson A, the first unplugged activity is called What's Your Function? So students work in pairs with player B acting as the function machine by privately choosing a mathematical function, and then player A provides a numeric input and guesses the function based on the output delivered by player B. So based on your prep, you'll provide some example functions and then follow the outline process. But, let's look at an example with a simple function. So let's suppose that you have Gina and Paul who are paired up, and Paul is the function machine. So he'll take a moment to think of a function like multiply the input by 2, and then writes it down so that Gina can't see it. And then Gina gives an input of 8. So Paul applies the function to the input and says 16 as the output. Now Gina thinks the function could be either input plus 8 or input times 2, so she'll guess input plus 8. Now had she guessed correctly, they'd switch roles, but since she was incorrect in this case, then she gives another input of 20. And so Paul says 40 as the output, and Gina guesses the correct function, and then they switch roles. Now the second unplugged activity, called Crazy Conditionals, is an activity to introduce conditionals and event handlers. So you'll hand out the prepared conditional statements following the guidelines, and you'll instruct the students not to speak or make noise unless their conditional statement triggers them to. And then you follow the rest of the instructions to facilitate the activity. And this is a really fun, high energy activity with students bouncing up and down, and it can be a lot of fun and a great way to reinforce how event handlers work. Now in Lesson B, you'll follow the step-by-step instructions and screenshots to lead the first coding activity of the course. Now, it's intended that you demonstrate the steps on your device projected on a presentation screen with your students following along on their devices. But if you don't have a projector, just move around the room between steps to facilitate the activity. Now in Lesson C, the project is to design, code, and build a fidget cube out of the microbit with unique outputs for the 4 provided inputs. That's it. Best wishes for a fun and engaging Unit 2.